Hi guys, welcome to part 4 in my series on the other 26 rudiments. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 3, I'll link you to a playlist of them up here. But this is basically my attempt to find 26 other rudiments in American playing history and publication history that are not the NARD 26 you're used to. So these are 26 alternative American rudiments. They're not better than or instead of the other 26, which are fine. I just thought they would be a good addition to it for American playing. Now today we're going to talk about drag rudiments, and this is going to be a short video because there are only 3 on this list. There are a couple of other drag rudiments I could have included at the expense of something from a previous video, but there just weren't that many drag variations, and so I thought it wasn't super representative to have a huge selection on this sheet when there really weren't that many in the contenders list that I was looking at. As always, you can find most of these rudiments and a whole bunch more in my book Encyclopedia Rudimentia, which I'll have a link to below, and I'll also have a link below to the notation for the sheet that I'm talking about here, so you can look at it and follow along. Okay, so the first rudiment on our drag section is called a full drag, and I have to back up here a little bit and talk about American drag and rough terminology. So originally, way back in the day, a rough was a closed drag, more like an orchestral drag, and what we would call the drag today was called a half drag. So of course, if that's a half, there has to be something that is a whole. So there were 2 candidates for that, or 2 separate versions: the full drag, which we're going to do here, and the single drag. And the single drag is what we now call the single drag tap, something like that. That's the, of course, PAS interpretation of that rhythm. And then there was the double drag, which we call the double drag tap, which again, that's the PAS version of the notation. We could do the single drag old school style, and then the double drag old school. But we also have the full drag, which is this, which is essentially an inverted single drag tap. So, right, you tap with the same hand that played the 3rd note of the drag, so that you end up playing 3 strokes in a row when you go to the other one. It's a little bit more awkward than a standard single drag. This fell out of favor at some point. We stopped using it. And it's probably good because, of course, it's really confusing to have a rough, a half drag, a full drag, a single drag, and a double drag, all essentially, that sounds like that's only about 3 things when it's actually 5 things. So that's the full drag. Moving on, we have what's called a paradiddle and accent. And this really isn't one rudiment. It's probably what would be considered today a hybrid rudiment, but of course, well predating the concept of hybrid rudiments. And it's a paradiddle with a flam on it, then another paradiddle with a flam on it, so 2 flam paradiddles, which is already sort of a hybrid. Then you have a random single stroke, and then you have a drag and 2 more single strokes. And so it creates this nice phrase that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beats long, which is sort of an awkward length. And I guess you could probably assume that there's a rest at the end of it to make 2 measures of 4/4 or 4 measures of 2/4. But it goes like this. So it's not really a single rudiment, but it was presented as a concise singular pattern in its heyday. Okay, and then the final drag rudiment we have on the sheet is called a compound double drag beat. And it is essentially a drag onto a set of 4/16 notes and then a drag onto a quarter note on the downbeat after that. So it's 5 notes, first and last one get a drag. Not terribly revolutionary, but it's a pattern that we don't normally see. It's a little bit like a European drag paradiddle, but it doesn't have paradiddle sticking. It's sort of like a flamacue, but it doesn't have the accent, and it's, of course, drags instead of flams. So it's just sort of its own beast in the middle of that mixture. But that's it for drag rudiments that I had today. There really aren't that many. A lot of old school sheets just used the standard drag paradiddles and radimacues and, you know, single and double drags. That was about it. So there are just a few extra variations. Anyway, again, more rudiments are found in my book, Encyclopedia Rudimentia. Check out the other videos from this series if you didn't already. You're welcome to just have and use the other 26 sheet. And other than that, I think that about wraps it up. Let me know if you have any questions or problems interpreting these things. There are, of course, alternative rhythms and things you could do with these variations, especially with like the rolls and stuff. But hopefully that's interesting to you guys. Have fun, and I will see you in another video next time. Thanks.